The narrative begins with a young man taking his final breaths on a battlefield while overhearing his enemies casually discussing green tea. With a sudden jolt, he awakens, visibly shaken, as the radio in the background warns people to be cautious of the rays on this sunny day. He slowly sits up, realizing it was just a dream, though he is surprised by how vividly he remembers everything, including the loss of his arm. At that moment, a soldier from the bed above hands him a page, instructing him to sign it. Kiji takes the page, still absorbed in his thoughts about not wanting to die in his dream without ever experiencing real combat. When he examines the page, he complains to his colleague that he has already signed it. His friend Jin, however, dismisses his protest and tells him to sign it quickly. Jin explains that it is a signed confession for stealing alcohol from the PX, which they plan to use to have a party tonight. He continues that after the war, they will turn in the confession signed by the person who will die in the battle. Despite Jin's seemingly foolproof plan, Kiji doesn't understand why they need to follow this tradition since they are preparing for battle in the afternoon. Jin then hangs his head over the bed to look at Kiji and clarifies that the party is tonight and they are leaving tomorrow. Kiji is shocked by this revelation, as he distinctly remembers deciding to stay back and not attend the party the night before. Jin's unusual behavior concerns Jin, who suggests that he understands Kiji's nervousness given that it will be his first time on the battlefield, but advises him to relax. Kiji is beginning to realize that perhaps everything seems to be just a dream, and Kiji is freaking out. As he gears up for his first battle tomorrow, he realizes he needs to calm down. According to his narration, humanity is embroiled in an intense war, not against each other, but against creatures known as mimics. Their origins and nature remain a mystery, but their intent to annihilate humans is clear. While adults compare this conflict to a sci-fi movie, for him, it's just another ordinary Tuesday. This battle has been ongoing since his childhood. Humans created the defense force to combat these monsters, but the long, exhausting war has taken its toll on everyone. He remembers hearing that mimics have swarmed Oka, and humans worldwide are gradually becoming prey to these creatures. Even Japan is under attack, with the battle concentrated at the base flower line on the Boso Peninsula. Japan remains the sole industrial nation capable of producing the composite armor needed for battle jackets. To protect this critical asset, the army has deployed a special military unit led by the formidable Raider Rasky, commander of the U.S. Special Forces. Rasky's elite team is renowned for their success in defeating mimics, and Kiji will join that unit for an epic showdown tomorrow. His thoughts are interrupted when Jin comes down from his bed, reassuring him that it will be fine if he just returns without accidentally shooting anyone in the back. Jin advises Kiji not to stress too much, explaining that the soldiers who come back intact are unusual and that he should be like their sergeant, who worked out his muscles to the point where his brain has shrunk. Suddenly, the sergeant, Balwan Farrell, speaks in Jin's ear, asking if he wants extra training. Standing at attention, Jin quickly salutes Farrell, who asks him to repeat what he said about his mind. Jin stumbles and replies that he was just talking about Kiji's strong spirit. Ignoring him, Farrell tells everyone that the 17th unit will assemble at 9 o'clock sharp and instructs them to spread the word. The soldiers, initially confused, quickly comply when Farrell shouts his order again. Farrell then informs them of a surprise inspection, revealing numerous deficiencies in their equipment. The soldiers are shocked, but Farrell continues, stating that the base commander is upset because the U.S. Special Forces have already arrived. Jin protests that it's not their fault and his colleagues agree, but Farrell responds that they should have been more careful and leaves without further comment. The soldiers wonder about the punishment they will face since they are scheduled to leave for battle tomorrow. Kiji suggests it might be physical training. Jin is surprised by this, but Kiji explains that he saw this in his dream and that they will likely be doing push-ups for 3 hours. His prediction shocks everyone, and they hope the dream won't come true. Later, they are indeed forced to do push-ups, and while struggling to maintain his posture, Jin frustratedly notes that Kiji's dream has come true. Kiji, thinking about how strange it is that his dream has become reality, responds that it's not his fault. The instructor shouts at them to count louder, earning silent curses from the soldiers. Another friend of Kiji tells him to look at the side where the US Special Forces are standing, and Kiji sees the best jacket soldier in the world, Rada Rasky. Jin is also shocked to see that Rasky appears much shorter than he had imagined. Their friend explains that she is the Full Metal Girl, renowned for her prowess against mimics, and advises Kiji not to judge women by their innocent looks. Kiji continues to stare at Rasky, thinking she looks more like a puppy than someone dangerous. Jin adds that people often discuss the US military unit as propaganda to promote new weapons and methods. Kiji asks if they are just for show, and Jin confirms that's a common belief. Kiji hummed in response, trying to recall if he had seen the girl before. Jin noticed Kiji's unwavering gaze at Rita and teasingly asked if he was interested in her. Before Kiji could answer, he was startled when Rita accidentally made eye contact with him. He quickly looked away, but Rita started walking towards them, causing everyone to panic. She silently passed by them and approached the instructor's conductee. The training. After receiving permission to speak, she requested to join the training. The officer was surprised by her request, so she explained that she had never had the opportunity to participate in this type of training before. Rita requested to join the training so she could contribute to the success of the operation tomorrow. The instructor granted her request, and she took a position right beside Kiji. He felt nervous as Rita addressed him, asking if there was something wrong with her face since he kept staring. Kiji stuttered, saying it was nothing, and Rita remarked that it was unusual for someone to stare at her. He quickly apologized, saying he wasn't staring for any particular reason. Rita didn't comment further, and Kiji continued to secretly observe her, thinking she looked like an ordinary girl. When the training ended, Kiji was relieved that it only lasted for an hour instead of 3, as he had dreamt. Jin excitedly approached him, mentioning that they would be partying tonight, but Kiji declined, saying he wasn't feeling well and wanted to stay in bed. Later, while lying in bed and reading a book that seemed oddly familiar, Kiji was puzzled since he had never read it before. He wondered if Jin had told him the story before. His attention shifted to the loud noise from his friend's party in the room next to him. Nervous about facing the mimics for the first time and surprised to be fighting alongside Rita, he reassured himself that it was just a dream and that he would not die tomorrow. The next morning, as they prepared to depart, their leader announced that they were heading to Kotoi Island. They geared up, and their instructors motivated them, emphasizing that they needed to reclaim the island. The instructor warned that if mimics had invaded Tokyo, they would have destroyed it within days, so the soldiers must save the lives of 35 million people. After reminding them that their families and friends were among those at risk, he urged them to crush the mimics into pieces. Following the speech, the soldiers advanced with their weapons, determined to defeat any mimics in their path. Kiji struggled to keep up as they moved forward. In the midst of the fight, the sergeant tells Kiji to calm down, explaining that they only need to deal with the mimics that aren't being eliminated by the main forces. Stuttering, Kiji acknowledges this, reminding himself that this is a real battle and he needs to stay focused. The sergeant then points out that mimics are approaching and instructs everyone to look ahead. Kiji suddenly realizes this is the actual battlefield and starts firing alongside his colleagues. They continue to shoot relentlessly, finally catching sight of the mimics' horde advancing towards them. Jin shouts that others must be slacking off since there are still many monsters, and he tells Kiji to move, warning that they won't last long if they stay put. Jin quickly moves but is soon hit by a blast that dismembers him right before Kiji's eyes. Kiji desperately shouts for his friend, only to see a mimic before he can escape. He is then struck by another blast, which tears apart his arm. The intense pain and burning make him scream as he lies on the ground, realizing he is about to die. Suddenly, Kiji wakes up in his bed, in the same position as before, his body intact. He sits up, shocked and trying to understand how he ended up there. Jin then hands him a paper, asking him to sign it. Kiji examines the paper and is stunned to see it's the same petition as before. He recalls the horrifying way he died in the battle and vomits in disgust. Jin looks down from his bunk bed, but Kiji is still trying to comprehend what's happening, as it feels too real to be just a dream. Jin asks if he's okay since they are going to battle tomorrow. The repetition of events shocks Kiji further. He quickly opens the book he was reading and finds he can remember every detail of a specific scene, even though it should be impossible since he hasn't read that part yet. Jin, noticing Kiji's strange behavior, comes down to check on him, but Kiji is too absorbed in trying to make sense of everything to pay him any mind. Kiji finally realizes that he has died in different situations and is stuck in a time loop, returning to the same day with his memories intact. He is puzzled about why this is happening and asks Jin what will happen if things keep repeating. Jin is confused by the question, so Kiji explains that it's like going back to the start in a board game. Jin eventually understands and responds that it depends on the events within the loop. He admits that he would never want to experience the Okoa landing operation again, even if his life were at stake. Kiji doesn't reply but thinks about how, if he were facing a firing squad, he would just come back again. He wonders what his friends would think if they knew about the loop, realizing that he is the only one trapped in it and facing the fear of dying every day. Feeling a surge of determination, he decides he will survive and seek revenge against the world that has condemned him to this cycle. He sits up and starts to record the number of times he has died, marking 5 on his hand, believing this small number represents the beginning of his fight against this world. Kiji reflects on his childhood, when he used to pretend to fight aliens with other kids. He was always the one playing the hero who took all the hits, giving others the courage to fight and win. While it was just a game about death back then, experiencing real death 4 times has shown him that it's nothing like the game, it is excruciatingly painful. He is resolute not to become a hero in this battle. As he holds his push-up position, his only goal is to stay alive during the battle, though he is unsure how he will manage to do so against the overwhelming odds. Kiji snaps out of his thoughts when Jin asks him to look at the side where the US military forces are stationed. Kiji glances at Rita, the strongest jacket soldier, and Jin remarks that she is just a poster girl. Kiji realizes this is a falsehood. He recalls his first death, which he had believed was a dream until now, where he had seen Rita fighting valiantly with a large axe and dispatching mimics mercilessly. He remembers her attire and their conversation, where Rita, facing a dying Kiji, had inquired if the green tea served at the end of a meal in Japan was free. She had confessed that she got into trouble because she took everything literally from a book she read and was now seeking a local's perspective. Rita had encouraged Kiji to take deep breaths, but he had asked her if he was going to die. She had honestly answered that he would, introduced herself, and assured him that she would stay with him until the end, despite knowing she would remove his jacket's battery upon his death and advising him to accept it rather than fight it. As the radio crackles with updates about the Alpha server and surrounding area being under control and an announcement about accepting the pizza, Kiji is stunned by the mention of pizza. Before he can process this, they are attacked by mimics. Rita swiftly picks up her weapon, instructing Kiji to stay put while she battles the mimics with her massive axe. She impresses Kiji with her speed and skill as she fights. Determined to contribute, Kiji struggles to stand and manages to kill one mimic before being struck by another attack, facing death once more. Returning to the present, Kiji reflects on Rita's immense strength and how she has survived numerous battles. He realizes he only managed to kill one mimic. Jin's voice brings him back to the moment as he comments that Rita's appearance was merely to make them feel inadequate. Kiji is puzzled by Jin's remark, remembering that Rita was supposed to be a formidable fighter. Kiji realizes that Rita's presence and their interaction might have shifted his reality, allowing him to alter future events. He understands that he has the power to influence outcomes and resolves to use this insight. As he heads back to his dorm, he reflects on the exhausting 3-hour training session he endured and decides to persuade Rita to shorten it to 1 hour next time. This also reinforces his awareness that, despite being in a time loop, he remains a novice soldier and needs to enhance his skills. While contemplating his strategy, Kiji notices his comrades playing chess. One of them complains about Jin's repeated losses, joking that he might as well play blindfolded due to his lack of attention. Jin responds that he prefers to follow his instincts, but is advised that a new approach is necessary for success. Kiji listens as the player explains the importance of varying strategies and studying opponents' moves, likening it to cracking a secret code through practice. This conversation makes Kiji realize his combat skills. Determined, Kiji seeks out Sergeant Frel, who has been at the base for a long time and is known for his extensive experience and survival. When Kiji remains silent, Frel asks if he is nervous about the upcoming battle. Kiji reflects on how Frel was once a drill instructor and is the most qualified person to help him. Finally, Kiji asks Frel if he could join him for training, hoping it might benefit him. Frel initially dismisses the idea as futile but, noticing Kiji's confusion, changes his approach. He references an old quote about defeating the enemy and learning from the experience, citing a master swordsman who had slain countless foes. Frel explains that soldiers who have survived many battles believe in the principle of continuous combat to gain experience, asserting that learning only happens in real-time engagements. He adds that the soldiers who make it through the battle will learn valuable lessons. Kiji smirks at this, contemplating how he can use his time loop to participate in battles repeatedly. Frel's comment reassures him that with enough practice, he could eventually match the skills of someone like Rita or the master swordsman. Noticing Kiji's smile and odd demeanor, Frel is puzzled. Kiji quickly apologizes, realizing that his reaction is influenced by his time loop awareness. He thinks to himself that, given the loop, he can keep training through repeated battles and eventually reach a high level of skill. Frel, still unsettled by Kiji's response, instructs him to return in 15 minutes dressed in first-tier gear. Kiji, slightly confused, asks if he needs to wear it and be reprimanded by Frel. That a soldier can't practice effectively without his gear. Kiji, who has found himself trapped in a time loop after his first battle, has identified some rules governing this cycle. The first rule is that when he dies, he returns to the day before the battle, with this rule holding firm no matter where or how he dies. He has also discovered that escape from the loop is impossible and that he will retain all his memories through each death. The final rule is that the future can be altered with each loop. To break free, he must become strong enough to overcome death, which requires improving his combat skills. Previously a normal rookie soldier, Kiji's perspective changed drastically with each death and rebirth. Currently, in his 12th loop, he charges across the battlefield with fearless determination. Although his fellow soldiers worry about his reckless behavior, Kiji focuses on the importance of staying active rather than succumbing to death. During his training with Sergeant Frel, Kiji learned crucial skills, including how to operate his combat jacket. Frel instructs him to turn off the auto-balancer, which confuses Kiji because it helps him maintain balance. Frel explains that the auto-balancer is a crutch that limits his development, encouraging him to learn to stabilize himself without it. Able to push himself further in his training. By his 21st loop, Kiji's proficiency with the pile driver improves significantly. His increased skill and determination become evident as he effectively takes down mimics, learning to handle them up close despite the inherent danger. Each successful kill boosts his confidence and motivation, reinforcing his resolve to break free from the time loop. Kiji's relentless efforts begin to pay off as he becomes more adept at navigating the battlefield and surviving longer against the mimics. His focus shifts to refining his combat techniques and learning new strategies to tackle the mimics more efficiently. With each loop, he gets closer to mastering the skills necessary to confront the challenges of the battlefield and ultimately defeat the looming threat of the mimics. Despite the hardships and the repetitive nature of the loops, Kiji's growing competence and unyielding spirit drive him to continue fighting. He becomes more strategic in his approach, using his knowledge from past loops to anticipate and counter the mimics' movements. His goal remains clear: to break the cycle of death and emerge victorious in the battle against the mimics. determined to acquire a weapon that will give him an edge in the battle. Shasta, still taken aback by the sudden and unusual request, asks why he needs such a weapon. Kiji explains that his current arsenal is inadequate and that a battle axe, like the one used by Rita, could provide him with the power and versatility he needs to take down more mimics effectively. Shasta, now intrigued by his determination, reluctantly agrees to help. She leads him to a storage room where various weapons are kept and retrieves a battle axe that closely resembles Rita's. Kiji examines the weapon, feeling its weight and balance. It seems perfect for his needs. As Kiji prepares to leave, Shasta advises him to be cautious and to ensure he uses the weapon wisely. She also warns him that the battle axe, while powerful, requires skill and strength to wield effectively. With the battle axe in hand, Kiji heads back to the battlefield with renewed confidence. His aim is to make the most of this new weapon and continue to refine his combat skills. He knows that every loop brings him closer to breaking free from the cycle of death and achieving victory. Back on the battlefield, Kiji finds himself more prepared than ever. He swings the battle axe with precision, taking down mimics with greater efficiency. His improved combat skills and new weapon significantly boost his performance, allowing him to make a substantial impact. As he fights, Kiji realizes that with each loop, he is not only becoming stronger but also gaining deeper insights into the nature of the mimics and the strategies needed to defeat them. He remains determined to push forward, knowing that every battle brings him closer to the ultimate goal of escaping the time loop and ending the cycle of death. Warns Kiji that without the proper training and physical conditioning, attempting to wield such a heavy weapon could be detrimental to his health. She explains that even with her expertise, creating a battle axe that suits his needs would require significant time and adjustments. Kiji, however, remains resolute and insists that he's willing to take the risk. He argues that he's faced death countless times and is determined to improve his chances in battle, even if it means enduring the challenges of using a heavy weapon. His persistence convinces Shasta to reconsider, and she reluctantly agrees to help him, provided he is fully aware of the risks involved. Shasta takes the memory chip, which contains critical data that might aid her in crafting the weapon, and promises to do her best to create a battle axe suitable for Kiji. She cautions him again about the potential dangers but respects his determination. With the agreement made, Kiji leaves the armory, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. He knows that while the battle axe will be a challenge to master, it represents a significant step towards breaking free from the time loop. His confidence grows as he prepares for the next battle, knowing that this new weapon could be the key to surviving and ultimately escaping the cycle of death. Shasta listens intently as Kiji explains that the number on his hand represents the number of days since his last death, a personal tally of his repeated failures and the time he has spent in the time loop. This revelation piques Shasta's curiosity, but she doesn't press him further on the details. Instead, she focuses on her task. As Shasta works on crafting the weapon, she remarks that Kiji's dedication to surviving and improving himself mirrors some of the most disciplined soldiers she has known. Her admiration for his resolve grows, even though she remains concerned about his well-being given the dangers of wielding such a heavy weapon. Once the makeshift weapon is ready, Shasta presents it to Kiji. It's not a battle axe like Rita's, but a custom spear designed with practical features to enhance Kiji's combat effectiveness. Shasta advises him to be careful and to remember that the spear's design is not meant to match the power of a battle axe, but to be effective within his current capabilities. Kiji thanks Shasta for her help and reassures her that he will take good care of the weapon and himself. With the new spear in hand, he prepares for the upcoming battle, determined to use his improved skills and equipment to break free from the cycle of death and finally escape the time loop. But Kiji sidesteps and avoids the blow, remaining calm despite the escalating situation. As the soldier throws another punch, Kiji deflects it with ease, showcasing his improved reflexes and strength. His restraint surprises the onlookers, and Rachel, sensing the tension, tries to mediate. Kiji remains focused, his thoughts centered on his ongoing struggle in the time loop and his desire to break free from it. He realizes that every day feels monotonous and repetitive, and even though he has gained new skills and a powerful weapon, the constant cycle of dying and waking up is wearing him down. As the fight continues, Kiji's actions become more deliberate. He avoids confrontation but stands his ground, showing that he has grown stronger and more resilient. The soldier's aggression starts to wane as Kiji demonstrates that he will not be easily provoked or defeated. Eventually, the soldier's frustration reaches a peak, and he storms off, grumbling about the cowardly behavior of Kiji. The other soldiers lose interest, and the cafeteria returns to its usual atmosphere. Rachel thanks Kiji for handling the situation calmly and offers him another shrimp, which he gratefully accepts. With the conflict resolved, Kiji reflects on his progress. The constant repetition of the same day has become a grind, but he remains determined to use every loop to his advantage. He knows that the key to escaping the loop lies in honing his skills, understanding his enemies better, and finding a way to alter the events that lead to his repeated deaths. As he continues to train and strategize, Kiji is determined to push through the monotony and focus on his goal of overcoming the challenges that the time loop presents. His resolve to break free from the cycle remains unwavering, even as the daily grind of his existence continues. Asks if he is interested in someone. Kiji, caught off guard, hesitates before responding that he is focused on his training and survival, not on relationships. Rachel nods, understanding his dedication, and suggests that focusing on the fight rather than personal issues is often necessary in their line of work. She offers him a supportive smile before leaving him to his thoughts. Kiji reflects on the day's events and the implications of his encounter with the bulky soldier. While he is frustrated by the continual loop and the challenges it presents, he is also motivated by the small victories and insights he gains with each repetition. He realizes that his dedication to improving himself, despite the repetitive nature of his existence, is what will ultimately lead to his success. As he resumes his training, Kiji's focus sharpens. He practices his moves with greater precision and trains harder to make the most of the time he has. The repetitive cycles of his life in the loop become a canvas for his growth and resilience. Each loop brings new opportunities to refine his skills and strategize his way to freedom from the time loop. The mimics, Kiji rushes to the injured soldier's side. The soldier, in pain but relieved, looks up at Kiji, who quickly assesses the situation and removes the metal piece. He reassures the soldier and helps him up, guiding him to a safer location. As Kiji continues to fight, his movements are precise and lethal. The battle axe swings with a rhythm that seems almost choreographed, each strike bringing down mimics with devastating efficiency. He is now a veteran on the battlefield, his skills honed through countless loops of death and repetition. In loop 158, he manages to push through the ranks of mimics, making significant progress towards the Alpha server. His efforts are starting to show results. The US base unit notices the effectiveness of his combat strategy and begins to rally behind him. Kiji is focused, driven by the desire to break free from the loop and to finally make a difference in the battle. Despite his progress, the strain of the repeated loops takes a toll on him. His headaches persist, growing more intense with each iteration. However, he uses this pain as motivation, channeling it into his combat prowess. His mind, though weary, is sharp, and he continues to press forward with unyielding determination. In the midst of the chaos, Kiji notices a critical moment when JY, who had previously been a weak link, begins to show signs of improvement. Kiji's strategic adjustments and relentless training are starting to pay off, and he sees the potential for a breakthrough. As the battle rages on, Kiji remains focused on his goal, to survive, to fight, and ultimately to escape the relentless cycle of the time loop. Each loop has brought him closer to understanding his enemies, mastering his skills, and becoming the warrior he needs to be. The end of the loop seems within reach, and with each passing iteration, he grows more confident in his ability to shape his fate. As Rita recalls the devastating attack on her hometown, she shares the details of that night, the screams, the chaos, and the destruction that followed. Her father, despite his best efforts to protect her, couldn't stop the mimics from wreaking havoc. The memories are vivid, and Rita describes the profound impact it had on her life and her decision to join the military. Back in the present, Kiji listens intently, his battle axe still in hand. Rita's story gives him a glimpse into her past and the reasons behind her resolve. He understands now why Rita fights with such intensity and dedication. Her personal loss fuels her relentless drive against the mimics, and it mirrors his own struggle to overcome the time loop. Kiji, moved by her story, realizes that despite his own struggles, he is part of something larger, a fight for survival and justice. As Rita finishes her tale, Kiji's determination hardens. He knows that every action he takes, every mimic he defeats, is a step closer to breaking free from the loop and achieving victory for everyone involved. In the midst of the ongoing battle, Kiji refocuses on the task at hand. With renewed resolve, he engages the mimic that had previously killed him, using everything he has learned over countless loops. His battle axe cleaves through the mimic's defenses, and he feels a sense of vindication and empowerment as he finally defeats it. Rita watches Kiji's progress with a new understanding of his motivations and capabilities. Despite the harsh reality of their situation, their shared experiences on the battlefield forge a stronger bond between them. As the battle continues and the tides turn, Kiji remains committed to his goal, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead in the relentless cycle of the loop. Where she began to master her combat skills, showing an exceptional ability to adapt and excel in battle. She trained rigorously and quickly rose through the ranks, becoming known for her unmatched proficiency with the battle axe and her strategic prowess. During her time in the squad, Rita faced numerous battles against the mimics, which only fueled her determination further. Each battle was a reminder of her lost family and the town that was destroyed. The mimics, having decimated her life, became her singular focus, and her drive to eliminate them became an unyielding obsession. The transition to the time loops was a shock to her, as it was for many soldiers. Rita, like Kiji, had to adapt quickly, learning how to leverage the time loop to her advantage. The loops, while a source of frustration and despair, also became an opportunity for her to hone her skills and improve her strategies against the mimics. In the present, as Kiji listens to Rita's story, he gains a deeper understanding of her motivations and the burden she carries. Her relentless pursuit of the mimics and her dedication to the fight are not just about duty but about avenging the loss of everything she once held dear. Kiji, now more resolved than ever, continues to push forward in the battle, knowing that he shares a common goal with Rita. Their fight against the mimics is not just a personal battle but a collective struggle to protect what remains of their world and to honor the memories of those lost. Request a more powerful weapon. Shasta, recognizing the urgency in Rita's voice, agrees to help but cautions her about the risks involved in using experimental or unconventional weaponry. Rita, undeterred, insists that she needs something capable of dealing with the unique threat posed by the special mimic she has encountered. While Shasta works on modifying a new weapon for Rita, Rita delves into the research archives, combing through documents and reports on mimics. She discovers information about the mimic with the antenna, a rare and powerful variant that seems to play a crucial role in the mimic hierarchy and might be the key to understanding the time loops. She learns that these mimics are not just ordinary creatures but part of a complex, interrelated system that affects their behavior and capabilities. With the new weapon ready, Rita is eager to test it in battle. She returns to the field with renewed determination, now better equipped to handle the mimics. As she fights her way through the battlefield, she keeps an eye out for the special mimic, determined to confront it and uncover the truth behind the time loops. Rita's focus and relentless pursuit drive her forward, even as she grapples with the emotional weight of her past and the burden of her current mission. Her resilience and tactical acumen make her a formidable force against the mimics, and she is driven by a deep-seated desire to end the cycle of death and destruction caused by these alien creatures. Rita, now piecing together the details from her investigation and interactions, begins to understand the mechanics behind the time loops. The key revelation is that the mimics are not just brute forces, they have a complex system that involves tracking and adapting to human strategies. The mimic with the antenna, which Rita identifies as a crucial part of this system, acts as a sort of central server or data hub. This mimic collects and analyzes information from every battle, effectively learning from each loop to improve its defenses. Shasta's explanation about the external memory units, which are high-tech diaries recording every detail of a soldier's performance, helps Rita make the connection. These memory units serve a similar purpose for the humans as the mimic's antennae do for them. Just like the defense forces use this data to strategize and improve their operations, the mimics use the data to adapt and enhance their tactics. Rita realizes that even if she destroys one mimic server, the network of mimics is designed to ensure that a backup server can continue to maintain the loop. This means that to truly end the time loops, she must find and destroy all parts of the mimic network. This network is akin to a fail-safe system that preserves the mimic's tactical advantage by continuously refreshing their knowledge and strategies. The headache that Rita experiences with each loop seems to be a result of the increasing complexity of the mimic network and the strain of constantly reliving and fighting through the same battles. Understanding this, Rita now focuses on the possibility of finding and destroying all the mimic servers to break the cycle completely. This discovery reignites her determination to end the loops, and she prepares to take the fight to the network itself, knowing that solving this mystery and dismantling the mimic infrastructure is the key to escaping the cycle of repetition. Rita, having gained a deep understanding of the time loop mechanics, now has a clear plan to break free. She knows that to end the loop, she needs to follow a specific sequence of actions on the battlefield. Her first task is to destroy the antenna of the mimic server, which is crucial because it emits the TACYM particles T. Without this antenna, the core function of the mimic network is severely disrupted. Once the antenna is down, Rita moves on to the backup mimics that serve to protect the server. These backups are essential for maintaining the loop, and eliminating them is a crucial step in her plan. With the backups taken care of, she can finally target the main mimic server itself. The destruction of this main server, after taking out the antenna and backups, should, in theory, end the loop for good. After successfully completing these steps, Rita is initially overjoyed to find that she has broken free from the loop. However, her happiness quickly turns to sorrow when she discovers that Arthur, a soldier she had come to care about, has died in the battle. The sight of Arthur's lifeless body is a crushing blow, and Rita is overwhelmed by a sense of futility. She reflects on the harsh reality of war and the limits of her ability to change outcomes. Despite her power and determination, she realizes that there are still many people she cannot save, and that war is inherently filled with loss. Following the battle in Florida, a top-secret research team is established to study the time loop phenomena. They conduct a detailed analysis of Rita's body, particularly her brain, due to the alterations caused by her repeated exposure to TAC particles. It turns out that the exposure triggered the time loop phenomenon in her, making her a unique and powerful weapon against the mimics. Through 211 iterations, Rita has grown stronger and more capable than anyone else, but her primary goal remains the same: to eliminate every single mimic and secure victory for humanity. Her relentless battle, marked by both personal and external struggles, continues as she stands alone in her fight against the mimics, driven by a singular, unyielding purpose. In the sky lounge of the Flowerline base, Rita watches the soldiers train below. Her gaze settles on Kiji, who is visibly struggling to maintain his posture. This moment is their first encounter, though neither is aware of the other's iterations or past experiences. As Rita observes, she reflects on her own journey. Here I am now, she thinks, it's been a while since I was in denial about my feelings. She acknowledges the distance she's traveled and the person she has become, recognizing the transformation and the challenges she has faced.